all y'all. I want to thank all you people, everybody that's attended, or everybody's registered and pre-registered, and everybody coming on. Tonight is the WPIAL two-man clinic, or two-person clinic, I should say. Tonight is a two-person clinic. We haven't done a clinic in a WPIAL probably for about 20 to 30 years, I think. Of course, I can't remember the last time we did it. And I asked our District 7, our District 8 rules interpreter, District 7 rules interpreter Paul Skirtich, District 8 rules interpreter Dan Robinson, and Dr. Felicia Young, who is the rules interpreter for the Pittsburgh Urban Chapter, back in August to put together a 3-person officiating clinic and a 2-person officiating clinic. And we've been meeting since August, and the 3-person mechanics clinic was very well received. Okay, I've gotten a lot of positive comments. I got over 50 messages stating that we needed this. You know, it was very well received. Thank you for doing it. So I want to again thank Dan, Paul, and Felicia for the work they put on. And as you'll see as we go through the presentation, how great the presentation will be. It'll probably be at least an hour and a half, could be longer based upon the questions. But please ask any questions if you have to. This is basically going out to those people that are new officials and or have never worked before and or now will have some sort of reference as to 2-person mechanics within the WPIAL. All right, first of all, I want to, we have a few dignitaries we want to talk about or talk to or talk with. But first, Chris Miller from Officially Sports, who is the sponsor for the show tonight. All right, Chris Miller, go ahead, it's yours.
Thanks, Nick. I appreciate it. Hi, everyone. My name's Chris Miller, and I'm the owner of Officially Sports, along with my husband, Randy Miller. He's also an official. First, thank you for everyone who has supported our business throughout the years. It has been, we appreciate all of you during this hard time. And all the new officials, welcome and congratulations on becoming an official. It's fun and it's great time to be with the sport you love and be with kids. And, you know, it's a nice vocation. Anyway, I wanted to remind you all to order sooner than later. There are supplies. We're good right now as far as stock, but there are shortages. So if everybody can please order soon, we're good. Like I said, you never know what's around the corner. So get your orders in soon. You can either shop at our store. We're in the North Hills off of Mount Nebo, or you can give us a call at 412-635-9949, or you can do your orders online at officiallysports.com. I have a great staff, Dave, Jason, and we just hired another guy, Chris. They're wonderful. So they will help you through the process and whatever you need. One last thing too, if you had signed up for the convention for the winter session, don't forget to use your gift card because you'll get one from us, $25. Make sure you spend it. It does expire on December 31st. And so it's free money, basically. So try to use that as sooner than later, basically, like I'm telling you. It's been tough. It was tough during football, and now we're headed into basketball season. So make sure you get your items. And that's basically all. Just wanted to thank Nick and Dan and Paul and Felicia just for letting me talk tonight. And I hope everyone has a great basketball season, and good luck to all of you.
Chris, thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions for Chris? Again, she and Randy own Officially Sports. We know who the brains of that operation is, Chris. Certainly not Randy. So.
I don't know about that.
But anyway. All right, any questions for Chris? Hi, Chris. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Night. All right.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right, our next guest is the Assistant Executive Director to the PIAA Executive Director, Mr. Pat Gebhardt from Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania. Pat?
Yeah, thanks, Nick, and I'll be brief. Thanks to everyone for putting this on. I will tell you, I was on the other night and listened to it. It was a great reminder for me just listen to the folks talk about how we should be going about our business, because when you're away from it for a while, you do forget. So thanks for inviting me, and the contents have been terrific. I'll just follow up on what Chris Miller just said about the convention. The winter convention is now open for all winter sports, for wrestling, swimming, and diving, and of course, basketball. You can register up to the last day of November till noon on that day, and you can continue to watch the sessions until midnight that night. So any of you that are on this call that have not signed up for the convention and you want to, you can do that. Just log into your profile, and for $50, you'll get access to all the sessions. What Chris referenced was, for your $50, you get a $25 gift certificate for Officially Sports. So use that any way you see fit. So it's really only a $25 fee to attend the convention. We had a great success with that in the fall. We see the same type of success here in the winter. So it's something that, COVID caused us to do it, and caused us to change the way we operate. And it ended up being one of the positives that came out of COVID. While I'm talking about COVID, we have not adopted any return to competition guidelines for the fall or winter for officials or the way our sports are conducted. I know there has been some questions regarding captains at the captains meeting. We're going back to the way it was before, with both head coaches and multiple captains, if that's what the school brings forward. If you remember last year, I think we had one captain and we didn't sign the book and do all those type of things. We're back to 2019 standard, where we back to normal. The one thing I would say that you can do that's hasn't been adopted formally, but officials can do, you're welcome to wear a mask if that makes you feel more comfortable. You can also wear gloves. I know some officials had that request. So those are permitted if you decide that you want to use either of those forms of protection you feel you need it. Finally, the last thing I'll talk about is the supplemental disqualification. I talked about it the other night. It came into effect last school year. I think the board of directors saw the number of ejections were not dropping the way they had hoped they would. And when I filled them in on the nature of the conduct with regard to how many of the coaches and contestants get tossed, that's really what caught their eye. The abuse that officials were facing. Also tried to use the retention and recruitment of officials as another reason to bring forward the supplemental disqualification, and they agreed. So there are some criteria that must be met. I'd ask you to look that up on the basketball website. It's actually in the preseason bulletin. It talks about the criteria that must be met for a supplemental disqualification to move forward. It's really egregious conduct. It's comments or conduct or actions by the coach or the player that come into play. What it involves is an extra game sit out. Of course, by rule, if you're ejected, you must sit out the next game. The board of directors decided to add another game to that penalty. And one other caveat on the supplemental disqualification that's probably most important, and it really applies to basketball maybe almost as much as any sport, is they've extended the jurisdiction on the visual confines of the court. The supplemental disqualification can be issued anytime you're on campus. So as soon as you drive in the driveway of that campus, if any of the criteria for the supplemental are met by a coach or contestant, then you can issue a supplemental disqualification. So it's from the time you arrive until the time you leave. It'll apply mostly to basketball when you're in the locker room and some coach that got beat on a poor coaching maneuver comes on the locker room door and starts beating on the door and tries to blame you for the reason they lost. That would be a supplemental disqualification because they're confronting you. Also profanity, vulgar and foul language are also criteria that can be met that you'll run into. So don't be afraid to use the supplemental disqualification. I think that the board feels our officials are professional enough that they won't overuse it, but they'll use it when the criteria are met. So there's no bigger supporter in the office than myself and Dr. Lombardi if you do have to use it. I think it's one of those things that will help us control the game. And really that's one of the top priorities each official should have, is just control the game. You want it to flow, you want it to be enjoyable for the kids. You don't want somebody to throw it into the toilet. And if you're using the supplemental helps control the game, then have at it. All right, Nick, I'm off my soapbox.
All
Go
right,
ahead,
thanks,
it's all
Pat.
yours.
Thanks, Pat, for your time. Appreciate it.
You got it.
Our next dignitary is David Wright. David is the PIAA state rules interpreter for basketball. David comes out of Clearfield, Pennsylvania, and he basically talks with all the state rules interpreters all year round in basketball. And he would be a conduit for the state rules interpreter from your chapter to talk to him. Dave, it's your turn. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. I just want to say very briefly, thanks everyone for putting in the work to be here. You have excellent clinicians in Paul, Dan, and Felicia. You have excellent leadership in District 7 and 8. And I wish you all well. Thank you for being here and have a wonderful season. That's it for me.
All right, thanks, Dave.
Video stop.
Our next person to talk, our next dignitary, Vince Sortino, Assistant Executive Director for the WPIAL. Vince?
Thanks, Nick. Just really quick, on behalf of our board of directors and our office, we just want to thank everyone for last year for all your efforts in being flexible and helping us get through our winter season last year, where we could conduct our championships. In addition to that, we want to wish everyone good luck in the upcoming season. And any concerns or questions throughout the year, please reach out to your officials reps. You have two great officials reps in District 7 and in District 8, so utilize them. We stay in contact with them constantly, as well as the PIAA. So good luck on the upcoming season. Thanks, Nick, for the invite.
Thanks, Vince. Appreciate it. Appreciate your time. All right, next is my colleagues, fellow district officials reps. Ms. Pam Cherubin will talk first.
Excuse me. Evening, everyone. Good to kind of see you all. Very quickly, thank you for participating. Bigger thanks go to Paul, Felicia, and Dan for the job that you have done, and for Nick for pulling all of this together. It is very appreciated, worthwhile, and so useful. I walk away learning new things also. I wish everyone a safe travel season and a good, healthy season, and a very happy Thanksgiving with family and friends. Thanks a lot, folks.
Thanks, Pam. Next, Katie Foley, PIAA District 8 Female Officials Rep. Katie.
Hi, thanks, Nick. I just want to thank everybody for joining your mechanics clinic here, and thank you and your staff for doing an awesome job. It was awesome on Monday, and I'm sure this will also be awesome. But thanks again for everything.
Thanks, Katie. Mr. Ed Moeller, PIAA District 8 Male Officials Rep. My counterpart in the District 8 side. Ed?
Hey, Nick, thank you very much. Hey, guys, I just want to thank you for all that you do as officials, being away from your families and helping the student athletes out. It's huge. We all know the shortages of officials out there, and it's important that the ones that we do have go out and train and learn and do everything they can to advance themselves and do their best at these sporting events. Remember that the four of us are here as your representatives to the PIAA, and if there's anything that comes up during the season and you need help with, please don't hesitate to reach out and get a hold of one of us, and we'll do our best to help you with whatever it is you need. Nick, again, thank you for all the work you've done. Outstanding job on putting this together, and the clinicians also. It's important this work gets done, and the fact that you guys take your time out of your days to do this is just awesome. So again, appreciate your help and look forward to seeing you all on the court this year. Thanks.
Thanks, Eddie. Appreciate your time. Pam, Katie, appreciate your time also. I have a few that aren't on this list that if they're on and they want to speak, so be it. Mr. Sam Puglisi is an assigner out of Washington County. Sam, do you care to say anything? Sam, are you on? I saw you log in. I also saw Bernie George, assigning secretary out of Westmoreland County. Bernie, do you care to say anything? Any assigner on care to say anything? Anybody that signs, high school basketball within Western Pennsylvania, you care to say anything now? Now's your time.
Hi, Nick.
Okay, go ahead, Bernie.
Nice to see some familiar faces I haven't seen in a long time. I really think this is a great idea for the new officials. It helps the assigners, and like I said, after 45 years, I'm looking forward to learning something myself. So thanks again for putting this together, and I'm sure it'll come in use.
All right, thanks, Bernie. Sam, anything, Sam?
Hi, Nick. Thanks again. Just to reiterate what's been said already, an awful lot of work has gone into this, and we certainly appreciate it. It's invaluable for our officials. I was thoroughly impressed Monday night. It turned out to be a camp situation, if you will, where there was so much information and we were able to get in a short amount of time. I give credit to your clinicians to put together a great presentation. We look forward to working with everybody this year. Nick, thanks for putting this all together for us.
All right, Sam, appreciate your time. Okay, next slide, Paul. Without further ado, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Mr. Paul Skirtich, to Mr. Dan Robinson, to Ms. Felicia Young, or I should say Dr. Felicia Young. It's all yours, folks. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Nick. Thanks, everybody. And good evening. And we'll try to give you as much information as we can. Obviously, we're in two-person officiating, and right at the beginning, two-person officiating is a challenge at any level, from junior high to junior varsity, or if there are still some varsities that employ two-person officiating, it's difficult. And we know it's difficult because we're trying to do the same thing that three officials do in the same space. So there are a couple of mandatories for two-person officiating. Obviously, one is to hustle. The second one is to move, because there's no magic spot and you have to get to a place where you can see angles. And the third part, more than anything, is you have to help each other as partners. With one fewer pair of eyes, one fewer pair of legs, two persons have to cover the entire court. The expectations from coaches, players, and fans is that a two-person officiated game should be as competent as a three-person. So our first part of the session is to talk about an objective, and that is to try and make officiating fundamentals for two-person officiating uniform and in accord with all the standards that we have in the rule book, the National Federation of High School Officiating Manual, and we want to do it for all PIAA District 7 and 8 basketball officials. We have an aggressive agenda. We're going to talk about new rule changes. There's not many. We're going to talk about a new mechanic change. And then we're big on the theme of communication. Communication of the crew, the two persons that are going to officiate the game. Before the game, arrival on the site, a pre-game conference is mandatory, and it's in tough situations. You don't have the luxury of time in a lot of games and a lot of sites. What to do when you arrive on the floor? Jump ball positioning. Ball side mechanics during play replaces rotation in a three-person officiating, but refereeing ball side is strongly suggested by the officials manual and the NFHS rules. Putting the ball in play throw-ins, philosophy on determining fouls, reporting fouls and switching, which is a little less complicated, there's only two, administering free throws, still controlling the bench, starting with the head coach, as I call the admiral of the bench, and then controlling all bench personnel. And then finally, post-game, it could be at the site, but if people have to leave, it may be later that day, the next day. You should always have some crew communication, and we'll talk about official signals. I'm going to talk on the first section, and then Dan and Felicia will follow. So if we go right into the agenda, here are the NFHS rule changes, and please know the session we're talking about right now does not substitute. It does not take the place of a chapter rules, state rules interpretation meeting. You still have to go to that because there's much more than what we're going to cover. But with the Federation rules, the new rule, Rule 2, it's a timing rule, it's a duty rule. Next year, states may utilize the 35-second clock. I haven't heard anything with Pennsylvania yet. That decision probably hasn't been made, but states can use a 35-second clock in high school. That will present a challenge, but one that the officiating crews will have to not only shoulder, but be competent with. So there is a new rule in Rule 3. Rule 3 is substitutes and equipment, uniforms, and the new rule is with religious head coverings. If anyone has a religious head coverings, no state approval is necessary, period. If somebody wants to play with a religious head covering, they should be permitted as long as that religious head covering meets the standards of any equipment under Rule 3. That is, equipment can't be can't be confusing. That's not going to happen here, you wouldn't think, but it cannot be dangerous. And that means that a religious head covering should be firmly affixed to the head. That's all you need to do. If it is a religious head covering, like a yarmulke or a hijab, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Let the people play, let the kids play with the religious head coverings as long as it is securely fitted to the head. Okay, mechanics change, there's one. It's a cascading effect down from college. College eliminated the team control signal last year. High school, as the norm, it takes usually a year or two, is eliminating it this year. So signal 37 is the punch fist, or the fist punch for team control fouls. You will no longer use that. All these signals will be a hand behind the neck, the player control foul, which signals to everybody, including your partner, that we're not going to shoot free throws. All right, so pre-date, crew communication, these are suggestions. Early in the year, make sure that the date, time, and site of the game is correct. Contact a home athletic director, one of the two officials, whether it's the referee or the umpire, decide amongst yourself, between yourself, I should say, and call the home athletic director and make sure you have the correct date, time, and site, especially opening weekend when a lot of booster groups and not the home athletic director host the tournament. They're the sponsors of that tournament. You have to get a hold of somebody to make sure that the game is going to be at the site and at the time. And then contact your partner. You can send text messages, you can send emails, you can leave voicemails, as long as in any time you make a communication like that, that you get a response. That's what I mean by closing the loop. You have to get a response. If you don't get a response to a text, a voicemail, or an email, you have to get on the phone and talk to your partner before the game. You don't want to come to a game and you're anxious if anybody's going to show up as a partner. That's a terrible feeling, and it reflects on the crew. In COVID-19, the current COVID-19, we're going back to the way it was, or it's the option of the officials. You want to drive if you're going to meet them or you're going to meet at the gym, and give them an approximation of arrival time. If you're running late, make sure you let your partner know. When you get to the site, for high school, junior varsity, and middle school games, we say try to get there 30 minutes, but we understand, everybody understand, that that's not going to happen across the board 100% of the time. So if possible, get there at least 15 minutes ahead to do a couple of things. Number one, the AD will be much more relieved that there are two officials on a game. Secondly, and even more importantly, your partner will be relieved, because it's hard enough to do a game two-person as opposed to doing it by yourself. So try to get there 15 minutes. And when you do, locate whoever the representative is, the home athletic director, inform a presence. You may have time to go to a locker room. You may not have time to go to a locker room, but get to a quiet place or a vacant corner in the gym so that you can locate your partner, seek this quiet spot so you can have a couple of minutes to talk, because that's all you may do. tonight, we're going to try and give you an example. I'm going to attempt to give you an example of a pregame conference that I'm going to have with my partner. My partner is Felicia Young. So Felicia, great to see you. Opening tip, boy, I haven't done a game for a while. We're at this junior high game at Jones Elementary School, Jones Middle School. We have about 16 minutes before tip. Let's talk about what we're going to do tonight. Is that good with you?
It's great. Nice to see you, Paul. It's
Yeah,
great.
good to see you. Good to
Yes.
see you. Good to see you. I just barely got in my pants. Okay, so here we go. We got the first game of the year for these two teams. These are two teams that don't usually play each other. I don't know anything about the team, but I know the home team has a veteran coach, and I'm not sure about the away team. Do you know anything about the away team's coach?
I don't.
All right, so we'll just figure out if we have similar styles, if one's more vociferous, vocal, verbal than the other. We'll always have to make sure that we control these two. It's the first game of the year. I just came out of our state rules meeting, and I know really we don't have a shot clock for this year. And I know religious head coverings are allowed. We just have to make sure that they're going to be securely fit on the head. So that's one thing to keep in mind, maybe in pregame warmups. The same thing is with the mechanics. We have an elimination. And Felicia, you're going to have to help me, because if I have an offensive foul on a screener and we're going the other way, I hope it's just not reflex and I do a fist punch. This year, there is no fist punch. We have to give a signal behind the head. So work with me. If you see a fist punch, remind me if I forget, and we'll try to get that hand behind the head for a player control foul, even when it's a team control foul. Is that a good idea for you to help me?
Absolutely. We'll help each
All right.
other.
Very good. We got to help each other tonight. And we know that you never know who's going to be watching. I don't think there's going to be more than 15 people, but you never know who's watching. There might be somebody here that's showing this game on their phone. They may be trying to record it. Who knows what's going to happen? But we're here for a reason, and that is we want to get points right. We want to get time right. And we want to get not only the time right, we want to make eye contact throughout the game. So every dead ball, Felicia, if I'm not looking at you, you hang on to the ball until I do look at you. And I'll do the same with you. And if you have any information that a 2-point basket should be a 3-point, you come to me and I'll come to you. We'll discuss it and quickly make a decision. Okay?
Yes.
All right. We know that one of the big themes of basketball over the last 10 years is to have freedom of movement. And that's what we have to do with freedom of movement. We have to make sure that cutters, dribblers, post players have the ability to move. And we know that we're going to do that if we stay in our primary coverage area. In our PCA, we can talk. We know that I have primary responsibility when the ball is in my PCA. And when the ball is in your PCA, my primary coverage area is off ball. So we know that we don't want to be looking at the same thing. There's only two of us. And when you have primary coverage area, Felicia, I'm going to look at your eyes and I'm going to look elsewhere. I hope you can do the same with me, okay?
Yes.
I know with a primary coverage area, I got to move. I might be in the middle of the floor. I might have to go to the dead space of the floor. There's no magic spot. I'm going to try to get an angle wherever I can tonight. I'm going to trust you with the primary coverage, and I'll look off ball into my primary coverage, and we need to do the same for each other. So you, Felicia, you feel free to go anywhere you have to go, whether you're the trail or the lead on the floor. I know that we'll try and keep players boxed in at all times, especially on throw-ins, but we got to move to maintain angles since there's only two of us. So when you have the ball in your primary coverage area, I'm not going to be looking at you. So I'll just trust you all night long, Felicia, okay?
Yes.
All right, couple of things that we need to know. with terms for tonight, and we'll talk about 3-point shots in a second. I know we have to be aware of legal guarding position, and we also have to be aware of offense initiated contact. Legal guarding position is 2 feet down in bounds, and the front of the torso is going to face that player, and that defensive player can move. They're not in quicksand. So I know I have to keep telling myself I have to get that legal guarding position. And if there is no legal guarding position and we have significant illegal contact, the foul will have to be on the defense. I also don't want to bail anybody out tonight. Offensive initiated contact, OIC, is something where a contact is initiated by the offense and displaces a defense. I may have a no call, or I may have a foul on the offense. So help me with that. And if I miss something in the first quarter or early in the game, when we get to a timeout or a dead ball situation, I know I can count on you to talk to me about, let's make sure we don't bail anybody. Is that a plan?
A plan. Thank you.
All right, good. I know I could count on you. We also know from this quick little chart on 3-point shots, the Trail's got 75% of the court for 3-point shots. And as the lead, I can only really help you in the weak side corner. That is obviously my primary coverage. I might be able to extend a little bit if there's a 3-point shot outside the arc opposite from you. But for the most part, we're going to have to be real good with our eyes, make sure we got feet behind the line at the time of release. We want to take the shooter up and down, whether it's a 3-point field goal attempt or a 2-point field goal attempt. I know we want to talk about maybe some 3-point responsibilities are on this chart. You see there's shaded areas. On rebounding areas, we each have to help each other with rebounding. I have strong side, you have weak side. You're going to have over the back as a rebounding when you're the Trail. When I'm the lead, I'm not going to be able to help you too much with that, but I'll get everything strong side so that we can try and clean this up early in the game. I also know that a big thing of tonight, we have to get the throw-in spots right. So I call it the upside down Darth Vader mask. And when the ball's outside of that diagonal to the end line from the edge of the free throw line, I'm going sideline with a throw-in. And Felicia, please promise me, if I'm in this horizontal vertical area, if I'm in the free throw lane line and I start going to the sideline, what are you going to do? How are you going to help me?
I'm gonna definitely point to the right spot, to help out. Definitely. If I have to blow my whistle, or yes, we got to get the spot right. Very important.
Got to get the spot right. Okay. We know that with freedom of movement, we're gonna apply that to ball handlers and cutters. We're gonna be patient, especially with our whistle as the lead, and let the play start and finish. We have to let that whole sequence of events happen. We have to remind ourselves there's only 6 times we sound a whistle during the game, and one of them is before the first jump. So if we have any kind of a whistle during a dead ball, we'll talk about that in a little bit, but we have to get together. We have to make sure we watch the table, especially for subs. We have to watch the table in case there's a problem with the timer or the official score. Every dead ball, we have one of us who is administering the free throw. That's probably the last place we should look. If I screw up a 2-point shot that should be 3, please come in and give me information. If you're 100% sure, we have to make sure we get basket interference, goaltending. If we have it in a game, I don't think we will, but you never know. At any level, you could get a really great athlete. And so we just have to be aware of it. If I blow a line, if I do the wrong thing with the line, please make sure you come in and give me information. If I know you're coming in, then I'll change the call. If we have a double whistle, we should let the person who has the primary and the play's going to should have it, unless the opposite official has something that happened before that. With substitutes, the off-ball official should get subs and make sure at the pregame, I'm going to tell the timer to blow a horn so we know. Besides all of that, if we have problems, players talking to each other, both you and I have to be proactive and stop that. If it's one player talking to another player and it's brief and nobody else hears it, we may be able to not put a sanction of a technical, but we have to address it. If there's one body down with significant illegal contact, whether it's you or me, we can argue about the call after, but we have to have a whistle. If we have two bodies down, we have a real crash, we have to have a whistle. Again, we can disagree about what the final call is, but we have to control this game or it'll get out of control. And when we talk about control with coaches, if they ask a question, we're going to try and give them a basketball answer. We can't have seminars or lectures because there's only two of us. And don't be afraid, we'll tell the coach. I'm going to tell the coach I'm not that good enough to stand here and talk to you. I have to referee. If we have to get to a warning, please let me know. If I warn a coach, a lot of times I'll do a dead ball. I'll hit the whistle and I'll verbally say a warning and make sure that the scorer puts it in the official scorebook. And a lot of times that acts like a technical foul and it seems to work. We know that if we have an intentional or technical foul, we got to get together. If you call it, Felicia, I'm going to come to you and I'm going to let you articulate, let you state what you have. May be able to give a chance to catch our breath, settle us down, make sure we know who the shooter is, what we're going to do after. If I call a technical foul and I start going to the table, what are you going to do, Felicia? Before I even talk to you, if I start walking to the table after a technical, please help me. What are you going to do?
Yes, I'm gonna come right to you. I'm gonna make sure you do not report because we need to communicate. We need to make sure we have all the information so we can adjudicate the technical properly.
All right, very good. And this is just one little thing I saw. You know, somebody claps hands in the face, that's conduct, zero tolerance. We're going to call a technical because if we don't, in this second little diagram, you see that a punch occurred, and we're not going to have that tonight. We're too good for that. If we have a technical foul administration, the lead's going to bounce the ball. The trail has to keep all the rest of the players within their view. We know that at the end of the half, I call it the last 4 minutes of the second quarter, the last 4 minutes of the fourth quarter, we have to be letter perfect. If I'm wrong, that team probably is not going to have enough time to overcome my mistake. So we need to be real sure of traveling. If we have calls, both officials and two-person, we have to call traveling in our primary coverage area, wherever it is. And on last shot, we want the outside official to have the clock no matter wherever they are. The lead can have knowledge. And if you have any kind of knowledge, please share it so that we can get it right. We'll get the last shot with points and we can make time. Okay, Felicia, you ready to run? Ready to go? Let's start the season. Okay, thanks. You go get the ball and we'll try to get these teams going. Okay, that's a sample pregame. There's a lot of stuff in there. I know you might be before a JV or a middle school game. Some of those themes you should talk about. You should talk about how you're going to deal with some of the situations that we discussed, because it could help. Early in the season, always remind yourself, no more punch fist. All right, so you get on the floor. And when you get on the floor, you want to get there. The manual always says get there 15 minutes before. You want to try and get there before 10 minutes. And the reason why you want to get there at least one official before 10 minutes is, even though this is counter to the Federation officials manual, you want to get on the floor before 10 minutes so you can get to the official score especially early in the year, and prevent any administrative technical files being called by helping with bookkeeping. So you want to get on the floor, and when you get there, you have a duty. The diagram is 4-1. We'll show you that in a minute. What are you to observe? You're to observe all the players, look at their uniform, look at all the equipment that they have, okay? And here's a pregame. Here's the pregame spots. The referee has the home team, and the umpire has the away team, and that's where you stand. You can move a couple of steps in each direction towards the end line or towards the division line. You should probably not be together discussing because you have a job to do. You want to look at equipment, you want to look at uniforms, and you want to deal with it before the game so we don't start the game with a technical foul. Between quarters, that's where we're going to stand. The referee will be at the division line, and the umpire will be at the center jump circle closest to the referee. That's where you should be standing at the end of each quarter. Obviously, halftime, you're going to get off the floor. At halftime, the two officials should get together, let the benches clear. Then the referee definitely should go over and check with the official score to make sure there's no problem with the scorebook. When you arrive on the floor, we go to the table. Again, it's timing and a sample narrative. Now, you don't have a lot of time, so here I'll give you a quick sample narrative of what I tell an official scorer. First thing I do is introduce myself. Hi, I'm Paul Skirtich. Nice to meet you. What's your name? Good to see you. You have a black and white striped shirt on tonight? Oh, that's great. You don't have it on right now. That's fine. We're in pregame, but once the game starts, please put it on. Tonight, we have two of us. My partner is Felicia Young, and I want to go over a couple of things so that the three of us are on the same page. First, when we call a foul, before you write anything, make eye contact with the calling official. We want to make sure you get the color right and the number right. With any 2 or 3 point basket, if you get one touchdown signal, that's a 3-point basket. We'll try to mirror the 3-point made basket. But if you don't, and you don't see any 3-point signal, the next dead ball, and you're confused whether it's 2 or 3, let's get that taken care of right away. Keep track of timeouts, keep track of the arrow in the scorebook. I know it's on the scoreboard, but I need you to keep track of it on the scorebook. With timeouts, put the number of the player who calls it or C for coach. Let me know when you're out, a team is out of timeouts, and I'll let that coach know. I need you with arithmetic. If we have 7 team fouls, please visually signal. Even verbally state, we'll be able to hear. 10 team fouls, let us know. When a player has 5 team fouls, visually and verbally tell us so that we can get the timer. We can let the coach know first, get the time to replace that player started, and then get the substitute into the game. If you have any questions, wait to a dead ball, have the timer hit the horn, and you need information, that official will come over and talk to you. Do you have any questions for me tonight? Great, thanks very much. Mr. Timer, you're there's a couple things I want you to know. First of all, help with substitutes. 1 touchdown signal is 3 points, no touchdown signal is 2. Give me a horn on every substitute. If the scorer needs information, wait for a dead ball and hit the horn. Please help the scorer when a player has 5 fouls. You can also help the scorer. There's only 2 of you tonight. When it's 1-on-1, 17 fouls, or when it's 10. And that's it. I'll ask the timer, do you have any questions? I may ask them if there's an official clock. I always ask if there's a recall in case the power goes off, but that's as good as you can get. With the timer and the score, then we're going to read the sportsmanship message. We heard Pat say we need the head coach. The head coach, if they are in the gym, they have to be at the sportsmanship message meeting. A captain has to be there. Make sure both officials are there. and try for the umpire to keep an eye on both teams continuing to warm up as the referee reads verbatim the sportsmanship message. If a head coach doesn't want to come to the pregame sportsmanship message, just give them the potential penalty. That's a direct technical foul to the coach. They would lose the coaching box. The game would start with 2 free throws, and that team that shoots the 3 throws will get the initial throw in out of bounds. That should help you get the coach there. We're going to look at jump ball positioning. There's diagram 4-2 in the manual. Ensure there's 10 players. Ensure that those players are the starters designated in the rule book. That's a little, and I'm sorry, in the scorebook. That's a little difficult, but it's a good practice to get into, especially when you get to the varsity level. Make sure the teams are facing the correct way. That's a bad way to start off the game for the crew. It indicates or signifies we may be not concentrating as we should. Remember, you never know who's in the stands watching. The referee sounds the initial whistle in the game. That's before the toss. And the toss should be higher than either player can jump, even little kids. It has to be higher than either of them. Practice it. So after introductions, if there are introductions before tip, you can be table side. If you're more comfortable opposite at the division line, that's fine too. Positioning for the jump ball, there's a referee, there's the umpire. Pretty simple. Jump ball positioning, if the initial possession is gained in the front court, the umpire is the lead and the referee is the trail. If the initial possession is gained in the back court, the umpire is the trail, the referee is the lead. Diagram 4-3 is when the umpire is the lead. Diagram 4-4 is when the umpire is the trail. Here's 4-3. This is 4-3. Ball goes left. All right, the ball goes left. Referee is the trail in this situation. And when the ball goes right, you can see the referee is the trail here. There's no possession, change of possession, even before one team, the ball's not hit from front court to back court or back court to front court. So the referee will become the trail in both of those from the federation. Immediately after the jump ball, it's primarily the R, but the U has to help. And that is make sure you get the initial arrow starts, or I'm sorry, the correct way. That's a great way to start. And then secondly, ensure the clock is running. And one way that I look at the clock is running, I didn't come up with this. I learned it at a camp years ago, and that is every time I cross a line, look at the clock and the scoreboard, especially the clock. Every time I cross a line, make sure that the clock is running. And at least it gives you a baseline. I now turn it over to the esteemed Dan Robinson, my colleague in District 8.
Thank you, Paul, and good job. Hello, everyone, and good evening. I am going to talk to you about the ball side mechanics. I will talk to you about throw-in and reporting and switching. Felicia will come on in between the throw-in and the reporting and switching. Ball side mechanic is something similar to the three-man rotation. It is can be used when the ball and the player or location is key to need for the movement by the lead. This is the lead who will move as it does in the three persons officiated game. The lead moves when the majority of players and the ball is on the trail side and below the free throw line extended. The lead should close down and or move ball side in those situations. We do have a couple of diagrams we'll show you on that. The lead moves ball side only when the trail is in the front court. Movement of the lead is the same as the lead in three person, as I mentioned. Lead look at players who passes in the lane. So if you have players in the lane area And as the lead rotates over to ball side, you still have to officiate those players and that action within the lane. So please keep your eyes on those players and on that in that action in the lane. Next slide. Okay, here's a ball side mechanic slide here. We see the lead who has moved over to the trail side here. You see the 5 and 4 is still over on the other side. I mean, the lead still has to officiate that whole area that extends out to the left of the lead to the sideline. That is a primary coverage area for the lead. And the lead also has primary coverage in the arc area. You see the trail has those two players up top, but you see the lead and the trail is on the same side. That's ball side mechanic, and the ball is right there in front. Next slide. Ball side mechanics during play, when the ball moves inside that arc, below the free throw line, the lead has primary coverage area, as I mentioned. The trail must extend coverage off ball. You see that in diagram 421 in the official's manual. When the majority of the players or the ball swings back to them, the lead must return to the original position. So you see that in diagram 422 in the official's manual. Next slide. This is movement towards the sideline. Okay, so we see a lead here. Lead is in the traditional lead position, and we have the ball is just beyond the 3-point line. Then the lead move over to officiate that area. Okay, so the trails may have to extend that area down as the lead move over. The trail may have to extend that area down closer to the paint area. Next slide. This is the trail position movement off sideline, as the trail will referee. You see number 2 and number 1 on the ball. Trail has that responsibility. So the trail moved from the traditional trail position around the 28-foot line to almost into the center circle to be able to have a good view between the players as that action takes place. Next slide. Throw ins. Next. Okay, Paul showed you this before. This is the throw in when you want to designate a throw in spot. You see the arrows that's pointed horizontal. Any of the arrows and the arrows that point horizontal, the throw in is on the end line, handled by the lead official. And if the arrow is on the side, pointing to the side, right or left side, that's a sideline throw in for that in that area. And those will be handled by the trail. Next slide. Putting the ball in play during throw in, these are some of the general throw in provision. Always indicate the jersey color and direction of the throw, using the proper signal for direction. That's signal with your fingers together or your thumb tucked inside your palm, and given the color of blue and pointing to the direction of blue's basket. In the front court, the official responsible for the boundary line is the administering official. In the back court, it's going to be the trail official who will handle throw in. The ball is taken out of bounds at the appropriate spot, which we just shown. The designated spot should be indicated by the calling official by pointing to the throw-in spot. So if there's a violation or if there's a common foul, there should be some preliminary signal and a pointing for the throw-in spot. The administrative official should always make eye contact with the partner before the ball is put in play. You want to make contact with your partner, making sure that partner is ready, not engaged in conversation with a coach or anyone else. You may want to also look over at the table, make sure they're ready, make sure that there's no sub at the time before we put the ball in play. When administering throw in on sideline, a bounce pass is recommended, strongly recommended. Next slide. Again, per PIAA, we hand the ball to the thrower. Again, as Paul mentioned, we are pre-COVID now. So we're going to hand the ball to the thrower in the front court and on the end, along the end line. If the thrower muff the handoff or the bounce pass, throw-in should be re-administered without penalty. So it should be a whistle and stop play and re-administer the throw-in. Restart your count. Administering official shall begin a 5-second count using the arm near the thrower. If the clock is stopped, administering officials should signal the clock to start using the arm further from the thrower when the ball is legally touched by a player inbound. Next slide. When we start in a period or a quarter, a throw-in starts the second, third, and fourth quarter shall be administered by the referee. That administering official should make sure that we have the proper time on the clock, beginning with that. If it's a JV game, we got 7 minutes. We want to make sure whatever level we're playing and whatever time they're playing per quarter or per period, we want to make sure that time is registered on the clock before we put that ball in play. Indicate the jersey color, and again, using your directional signal, designate the throw-in spot, division line opposite the table where you want to be. Sound the whistle and place the ball at the thrower's disposal. Next slide. This is putting the ball in play on the throw-in on the in line. This is front court throw-in inside the 3-point line. The lead official should be on the outside. This is the ball is going to be on the inside of the 3-point line. So it should be on the outside. And if the throw-in spot is going to be outside the 3-point line, the administrative official, the lead, should be on the inside. Again, you want to be able to box in the players with the trail, being able to have vision of all players. Again, we're going to hand the ball in the front court. Designated spot throw-in on inline shall be outside the free throw lane line extended, not underneath the basket, so to speak. We're going to make sure it's on the right side or the left side of the basket. The trail official always mirror the throw-in that was administered by the lead on the inline. We're going to have, when that ball is in play and legally touched by a player, the lead official will chop and the trail official will mirror that chop. The signal 8 can be used to indicate when a player can move along the inline after a stoppage of play, such as a timeout after a made basket. Next slide. This is boxing in. This is boxing in on throw-in. We have lead administration here. So we have lead administering the throw-in. We see lead with the 2 ones there with the throw-in position. And they are able to box in. You see the ball is inside the 3-point line. The lead is to the left. And the trail is up top. So the trail and the lead can box in, have good vision of all players on the court. Next slide. Again, putting the ball in play. This is a front court sideline throw-in. We have administered by the official responsible for that boundary line. And you can look at that on in the official's manual, diagram 4.8 to 4.10. Other officials, the other official also employed the box-in principle, keeping an eye on all players at that time. A ball again can be handed in the front court on the inline. Designated spot throw-in on the inline shall be outside the free throw lane line extended. And again, the trail official will chop. Next slide. This is throw-in when the trail will administer a throw-in. You see here the trail is on the side and administering it to the 2 ones. They have the match up there. And the trail will bounce that pass, step back a few steps, and the lead official is in that closed down position, able to watch the players in her area and box all the players in. Next slide. All right, throw in. This is lead side throw in. This is trail has throw in there as well. And the lead is ball side again on the throw in. So we can have ball side on the throw in or in play action. So this is on throw in. We see all the player, or most of the player, are on trail side. So lead comes over for a ball side throw in that particular case. The ball and the majority of the player is on the one side of the trail. So if that's happened, then the lead can go over for a ball side throw in. Next slide. Throw in below the free throw lane line. We see here the lead can bounce that pass to the thrower on the for a side out throw in. It is below the free throw lane line extended, so the lead can bounce that pass. You see the trail is pretty high. Trail moves back in that case to get a better vision, to be able to box in all players. So you have the lead bouncing the pass and the trail having to take a little bit more responsibility of watching all the players. So he moves back almost into the backcourt. Next slide. This is again box in, the trail in backcourt. See the trail official in the backcourt is administering a throw in to the two number ones. The lead is about halfway, the midcourt line, and we're able to watch players in the backcourt and also watch help out on press situation as the ball come forward from backcourt to front court, helping the trail official with that. So the lead is, in that case, is not, in a case like this, lead does not go to the inline. The lead needs to be up to be able to help out. Next slide. This should be Felicia.
Thank you. How's everybody? So we're going to talk a little bit about together the philosophy of calling a foul. But first, understanding what incidental and illegal contact. You can find this terminology in under definitions because we always want to use basketball terminology. And generally you can find most of that terminology to convey to a coach or someone who asks you a question in Rule 4, which is your definitions. So as you can see, it says incidental contact. So both illegal and incidental, there's contact. But the difference is, as you can see in incidental contact, the opponents both are able to perform their normal offense and defensive movements. So, some people have used the term advantage and disadvantage. I usually just say incidental, illegal, because that's what the rule book says. And so one thing you can tell the coach, like I said, both opponents were able to perform their normal offensive or defensive movements. Similarly, you can as well say there was no hindrance. No one hindered the other from performing their normal offense or defensive movements. So that's incidental. You can find that in Rule 4. And then illegal contact is basically an infraction of the rules. So I wanted to go through that first. And then now let's talk about the philosophy. Think like the offense and referee the defense. I'm sure most here on the Zoom have played the game and have heard that terminology. Think like the offense and referee the defense. Next slide, please. And so let's just use, for example, the triple threat position. As a basketball player myself, the coach always say, get in triple threat position, which means triple, there are 3 things I could do: pass, dribble, and shoot. So now let's use that philosophy with understanding triple threat position. First, a pass. So if I have the ball in my hand and Dan is guarding me, right? You're thinking like the offense. So I can pass the ball, right? And refereeing the defense, what can Dan do illegally? So if I'm trying to pass it, Dan can hit my hand, right? Because I'm trying to pass the ball to my teammate, Paul, but Dan hits my hand. So that's thinking like the offense that I'm going to pass the ball, but I'm actually referee the defense. And to be able to referee, you have to see between the players. You have to see their hands, right? You have to see between the players to be able to see the illegal contact. Now let's talk about dribbling. Dan is still guarding me. I have the ball. I legally dribble the ball. What illegal thing can Dan do? He can trip me up, which is affecting rhythm, speed, balance, and quickness, right? He can as well say, you know what? I am going to attempt to draw a charge and try to establish initial legal guarding position, right? And Paul went over what that really means. So those are 2 things as examples that can happen illegally that Dan can do as he's guarding me as a primary defender, because we're talking about a primary defender. Lastly, let's go over shooting, right? We're still talking about the philosophy of think like the offense and referee the defense. You have to do both. So on a shot, if I'm shooting over Dan, which is like no problem, piece of the pie, I shoot right over him, and he attempts to block my shot, what illegal thing can he do? He can hit what? From my elbow to my wrist. That's illegal contact. That's a foul. Illegal contact. While I'm in the air, what can Dan further do, right? If my hips or my lower body moves, because once you're in the air, I can pass it because my shoulders are on a swivel kind of, but it's very difficult for me to maneuver my lower body. And so if my hips turn, something happened there, whether my defender, whether Dan did it or my teammate, something happened. So you want to look at wrist to elbow, we talked about. Now we're talking about the lower extremity. I'm an airborne shooter, so I must what? Go up and down 1 foot by rule. That's what the rule book says. So if Dan has his foot in my landing space, that's a foul, because we're supposed to protect the shooter, because the shooter is in a vulnerable position. And so we talked about elbow to wrist. We talked about the lower body moving. Now we talked about the landing space. So now I have landed. What illegal contact can Dan now do? The last piece is what? Boxing out or blocking out, driving me backwards, displacing me down. So you have to watch that complete. You have to take the shooter up and down before you rebound. Don't cast your eyes to rebound after the person has shot, because I'm still airborne. I have to come down, and then you have to watch to make sure Dan doesn't illegally back me out. And you can see the ball if you use the peripheral, if you use all of your vision, because the ball is orange, it's moving, you'll be able to see it, but make sure you're protecting that shooter, that airborne shooter that has gone up and down. So that's the concept of thinking like the offense and referee the defense. So the next thing about rhythm, speed, balance, and quickness, what does that really mean? You know, if someone trips me up, Dan is still guarding me, he trips me up, he has affected my rhythm, my speed, my balance maybe, and my quickness, right? Those fouls generally occur above the free throw line. There's no thinking. If I get tripped up, it's a foul. You don't even have to think, it's a foul automatically. So there's no thinking there. Start, develop, finish, we usually use that terminology below the free throw line. When the post player, for example, catches the ball in the post and they're trying to do their move, you have time on that particular play. You want to see that whole play. Start, develop, and finish, because there's nothing like calling an and one and upset the whole game. I call that a GI upset, right? What does that mean? A game interrupter, right? The defender just had their hand on the offensive player. There was no illegal contact, and I just disrupted the whole game, right? So you have time when the post player catches the ball. You have time on a dribble drive. Generally, the guard is dribbling to the basket. You have a little bit of a time. So you want to have a patient whistle and not blow your whistle so quickly on that particular play. But so remember, above the free throw line, generally we're talking about rhythm, speed, balance, quickness. Can it occur other places? Of course. Start, develop, finish. Generally that occurs below the free throw line. Can it occur other places? Of course. But always have a patient whistle.
Okay, I will be talking to you about reporting fouls and switching. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, and when we report a foul, we certainly, like in 3-man, we have to go to the foul reporting area. We see the horizontal line there that denotes the foul reporting area. Depending on what side of the court you're on, all you have to do is go inside that area. You won't see that on the court, but you have to use your imagination go inside that area. And so you have a good, clear view of the table and report to the official scorer. That's the one with the striped shirt. Next slide, please. All right, reporting fouls. This is reported by the ruling official, the official who called the foul. Report this is, you're going to report to the scorer before addressing questions, comments, or anything with either coach. They're calling you, you call a foul, the coach may sense it being somewhat controversial or borderline and want to talk to you about it. No, you got to go report first, and then you may want to talk to the coach. The situation needs to be discussed with your partner. You want to do that before you report to the table. Ruling official inform the scorer by moving around. I want to say that again, around the player. Do not move through the player, move around the player. And proceeding quickly to the reporting area. So that's the box, but it should be the reporting area there, okay? Do not go through the players at all. If there's players standing in the foul reporting area, you should go around them. Do not go through them. A ruling official shall come to a complete stop before reporting to the scorer. So you go to the foul reporting area, stop, and then start to give you information. The ruling official shall state the color of the jersey, blue, number of the player, 24, who fouled, who committed the foul. The ruling official shall visually indicate the number of the player who fouled. So it's a visual and a statement of that player who fouled. We do use two-hand signaling. The right hand shall show the tens digit, while the left hand shows the ones digit. We verbalize 24. We do not say 2, 4. It's 24. Give a verbal and visual signal indicating the nature of the foul using the approved NFHS signal, and that's in the official's manual from page 31 to 39. If a free throws are to be attempted, verbally and visually indicate the number of free throws, 1 and 1, 2, or 3. Complete all your communication before granting any timeout to any coach or beckoning any sub. So take care of business with the table, and then you do those things. Next slide, please. This is the non-ruling official. All right, so it says, first thing here, it says freeze your field of vision. So that means that before you move, before you do anything, you want to make sure you have eyes on all 10 players. Now you can move but you're going to retain your eye vision, your vision on those players as the ruling official report the information. So to enable observing and keeping all players in view, we provide information if needed. We provide information to the ruling official, but you want to do that before the ruling official reports to the table. You ignore the ball. This is a non-ruling official again. You ignore the ball while the foul is being reported. Again, you freeze your vision, your field of vision on lock in all the players. If you have to go to the ruling official, you can go to him or her and state, for example, ball went in, but you let the ruling official count the basket or give us information to the table. Ensure correct free thrower line up the lane. This is a non-ruling official responsibility as the ruling official given information. Next slide. Switching and reporting fouls. This is all officials shall switch position on all non-shooting fouls. So non-shooting foul, we're just going to switch. I call a foul from the lead position. I'm going to switch and become tableside trail. The old tableside trail is going to go down to the new lead position. Next slide. Shooting fouls, call an official, reports, and becomes a trail. On shooting foul, tableside trail. And there's a diagram in the official's manual 424, 1 through 6. Next slide. Technical intentional flagrant, calling official shall become the trail table side unless hot. Now, if it's going to be hot situation, well, that means that you're going to kind of get away from the coach, so you may go down to the lead position. Next slide. We're switching on fouls. So this is a no free throw here. We see here the foul is called by the lead official. And you note that the lead official is going around the players and going to report. All right, go around the players and to the reporting area and report the foul, and becomes the tableside trail. The old tableside trail comes down to become the new lead to administer a throw-in. This is no free throws. On the right side, we see the foul called by the lead official, tableside lead, and the tableside lead goes around the player again to the reporting area, reports the foul, and goes over to become the new trail official. Okay, the old trail goes around the player and becomes a new lead to administer the throw-in. Next slide. We switch on fouls. This is lead calls with free throw. This is lead with free throws. So on the left side here, we see the lead this is a tableside lead, makes a foul call right on the one of the fives, comes up, report, and stays as tableside trail. And the old tableside trail goes down. Now you notice in this, on free throws, the lead stays opposite table. So we have tableside trail and opposite table lead. On the right one, we see the foul is called by the lead official, opposite table. So they go around players and report and become the tableside trail. And the old tableside trail comes around to handles the throw in or the free throws in this case. Next slide. We see here, this is switching on foul, trail calls with free throws, trail call with free throws. So in that case, the trail just simply turns around to the foul reporting area with a good view of the table, report the information, and turn right back around and stays as trail. The lead stays as lead. The one to the right, the trail is opposite table, calls a foul and goes over to table side, goes over to the foul reporting area first and report and stays table side for administration of the free throws. Lead official goes over opposite table to administer free throws. Next slide. Switching on foul, this is no free throws. This is no free throws. And we have a switch here going the other way. We kind of the long switch with the two-person version. We have lead calling the foul there. It's an offensive foul going the other way. So the lead comes report, goes down to the new lead position on the inline, and the old trail goes become the new trail on the inline to administer a throw in this particular situation. Next slide. Okay, this is Felicia talking about administering free throws.
Next point. So positioning, we're going to be talking about positioning and responsibility. First is trail. Whoever called the foul is always going to go table side. Dan just talked about that. And you really want to be a little bit above the free throw line extended, because you're going to have the thrower shooting the ball, and then a responsibility. Next slide, you're going to have the thrower as well as the 2 lane spaces opposite. Next slide. Now, as far as the lead will be 4 feet off of the near lane line. They're going to bounce the ball, but most important is when the trail, after reporting, which Dan just talked about, they're going to turn and give information to the lead. You're going to turn and say, is it 1 shot, 2 shots? And then the lead is going to mirror what you just told them. And you want to do that to prevent what? Correctable errors. So after the lead has determined from the trail how many free throws, they're going to mirror that. And then they're going to take a quick peek at the table. Make sure there's not a sub there. Make sure the table, our table officials don't have a questions. You're gonna look a little bit, I usually look to see what the coaches are doing. Make sure that all the players are sitting down. I take a peek and look at the clock. So, you know, as a lead, because you have a, you know, you can see a lot when you're in a lead position. So the position is 4 feet from the near lane line, and your responsibility is going to be that lane space closest to you, and then all the opposite. Next point, please. And all the spaces opposite. And so you just have to know your area of responsibility and trust your partners and pick up any violations. And so this shows briefly what it is. As you can see, the trail has the thrower, which is one with the ball, and then the 2 lane spaces opposite, right? And then have to be mindful of those players that as well are behind the 3-point line. Next slide, please. And then the lead, as I mentioned, they're going to mirror what the trail tells them, 1 shot, 2 shots. They're going to look and check, make sure there's no sub and everything's clear at the table, look at the clock, and then they're going to bounce the ball to the thrower and then step up. You want a nice wide angle because there's nothing like being so close. If you put your hand close to your face, you can't see anything, barely your hand. So you want to make sure 4 to 6 feet off of that lane line, near lane, the end line, so that you have a nice angle to see. And you're going to have, as the lead, that lane space closest to you, which is 4. And then you're going to have all the opposite, 2, 4, and 5. Next slide. And this again just shows with the trail movement, sometimes when there's players in the backcourt, you have to be ready to position quickly because we're responsible for all 10 and we have to, you know, make sure we're officiating all 10 players. Communication with the coaches, controlling the bench. Next slide. There are a couple of C's that I usually like to talk about, and we're talking about the coaches. Next slide. First of all, concentration. So when you have called the foul, for example, or if I have called the foul, for example, the first thing I'm going to do when I'm going to report everything, signal everything, white 21 hits, 2 shots, and then I'm not going to talk to the coach right then and there because often what happens is the coach is saying, Felicia, that was horrible call. Or Felicia, why was that a travel? Do not let the coach distract you. You must report everything first before you talk to the coach. You'll have plenty of time to talk to the coach. You have the whole game to talk to the coach. So make sure you're reporting because 2 things. 1, that your table official is waiting, the scorekeeper is waiting. Number 2, your partner's waiting. So make sure you report everything before you're distracted. Don't get distracted by the coach. Even when they say, give me a timeout, you run to the reporting area and the coach says, give me a timeout. Report everything first because so you don't forget your number. You let your partner know if it's a timeout, you turn. Number 2 is shooting, timeout, white. Next point, communication. Paul talked a little bit about communication. It needs to be like an elevator pitch, in and out, not a long dissertation. And how do you do that? Looking at rule 4, which is definition, and extracting that information, that verbiage. You know, why was that a block? Because they didn't establish legal guarding position. That's quick, 4 words and I'm out. You know, but when we get into a long dissertation and not using basketball knowledge and rules, then we get ourselves in trouble. Next point. So you want that to be quick, you know, because coaches are going to, you know, if it's distracting, you know, you may have to give a warning, you know, or let the coach know, hey, you know, I'm trying to, you know, officiate. I don't want to miss any plays on your team or on the other team, you know, but if it's distracting, you have something in your toolbox, you can always give a warning first and then be consistent. You know, Paul's my partner. Paul gives the coach a warning. And then I come and give the coach a warning. That's not consistent. That's not even believable. If Paul gives a warning and then the coach does something egregious, next by rule, okay, we're going to just keep giving you a warning because that deals with credibility, which is the next C. So we always want to maintain credibility as well when we're out there. Yes, we have to control the bench and the coaches, and it has to do with credibility being consistent. Next point. And so controlling the whole bench has to, you know, you have the assistant coach And assistants are going to, grow up to be head coaches. So we always should be mindful of being kind. But if the assistant steps out of line, you have the head coach. Coach, can you please help me out here? So we always want to concentrate, report everything. Do not let the coach distract you. Communication, you want an elevator pitch. It takes 2 seconds to go up an elevator from floor 1 to floor 2. So nice and quick, in and out. Consistency, credibility, and control, allow you to control that particular environment. Next is a couple of the signals here we're going to go through. So my first question, put this in the chat. How many foul signals are listed in a rule book? Let's see, we got some participants here. Put a number in the chat. How many? We got 9. Yes, 9. Next slide. Now, can you name some? Put some foul mechanics in the chat. Name some. We got block. We got block, push, charge, block. Okay, great. Next slide. So these are illegal use of the hands and hand check. So these are signals that have the word hand in them. Illegal use of the hand, you have your hand checks, next points here, you get, and this just tells you, the types of, illegal actions with the hands as far as hand checks. Next point, please. We have holding. Holding, you go over and you report a hold and the coach says to you, why was that a hold? So you have to answer the coach. You can't ignore the coach. What you can say is, in effect, the player's freedom of movement. Now, I just extracted that from the word holding. That's the definition, right? Interfere with the player's freedom of movement. The same way with blocking. Why did you call a block? Impeded the progress. That's in and out. That's an elevator pitch, nice and quick, not a long dissertation. Next signals, please. Charge and pushing. They moved into the opponent's torso. Next point, please. Player and team control. Now, Paul went through that they've combined this to go behind the head, and the signal should be used because it just lets your partners know that we're not shooting. Now, the next slides, which we're going to go to right now, next slide, please, is talking about your double fouls, the technical fouls, and intentional fouls. We don't use these signals much, right? There's 3 of them. There should be an intentional foul here. We don't use these signals much. So if we said 9, 6 of them we use more often than double fouls, technical, and intentional. So we can kind of practice our signals because there are 6 that we use a little bit more often. And intentional foul, as you know, there are 6 points. You can look that up in the rule book, but it's not based solely on the severity of the act. And there are 6 points to deal with intentional foul. Next point. Here, and then another question. How many NFHS signals are there in a rule book? Who can put that number? 39, 30, 39. Thank you guys for participating. 40. Appreciate it. So let me ask you this question. How many, we just talked about it, how many foul signals are there? We already said there's 9. And although we're doing a 2-man clinic, what's the maximum number of officials that can officiate on the floor for a basketball game? 3. So that's 39. So kudos to everybody who said 39, who said 40. Remember, we combined the 2 signals. Next point, please. And these are just some examples of some of the signals that we had. We had some examples. We had, Dan talked about signal number 8, making sure you have your 4 fingers. So be mindful of that. And you have time to just practice the signal. So practice your signals whenever you get an opportunity. Okay, the fun part, the video. The video. 1 minute here. So as I'm pulling up about to share my screen here to go through the video. First of all, I want to thank those who are in a video. And Emerson said, our greatest glory is not in never falling, but is rising every time we fall. So we're going to miss some calls. We may get them wrong. Some people may say that we failed. We haven't failed, you know, and so the big thing is you want to always move on to the next play, right? And so although I'm about to show this video clip, this is to help all of us get better. And I want to say thank you right now for allowing us to show this. And when I show a video, I usually put myself in the video. So I'll say it's myself because me and Paul, I'll be the calling official and on this particular play. And this is actually a 3-man, but I think it shows exactly what the crew here we want to share with each one of you. Let's see. Can you all see my screen now? Thumbs up, please.
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so this is a nice video clip, and really what I want to cover here as a crew, we want to cover mostly the calling official. That's what we're going to cover, focus mostly on is the calling official, the partner, and then I'll probably intertwine a little bit about what the coach is doing. Okay, so let me fast forward a little bit so it can look more like a 2-man here. So as you can see, the first thing that we're going to be officiating, this is a transition play, right? Transition, probably a little still here. You can notice that the ball wasn't taken out of bounds. So this clip, probably a little transition, right? So if I'm the lead, I'm gonna be the lead. Can you all see my cursor? I'm gonna be the lead here, right? Anytime there's a transition, the lead has to what? Lead the play. That's why they're called the lead in this play. So I need to put the jets on and get on down the floor because I have to attempt to get in front of the play. Sometimes I can. Sometimes I can't get in front of the play because the ball is always going to be faster than your legs, always. But you want to try to get down the play. That shows hustle. You always want to hustle, whether we're talking about 2-man or 3-man. We always want to hustle, right? So in this particular play, I'm the lead. The ball has beat me down the floor, as you can see, but that's okay. As long as I get an angle, you always want to get an angle to see between the players. Okay, so here's what we're going to cover now. We're covering, granted, the players on the floor, and so this particular scenario may be a little bit different because the players are on the floor. When you're the calling official, you want to move towards that player, right? Because you want to show your presence. But the point of this particular video, I want to go through the calling official because we went through how that piece should look. You know, after you make a call, your preliminary signal, running around the players, stopping, reporting. So I want to spend a little bit of time going through that. And so that's the point of this particular clip, okay? So now I have made the call and I'm gonna run it so you can see it and then we'll go back through it, okay? So there's a— Are you serious? Come on. Okay, so now let's go back. I just wanted to run it one time, okay? So we're calling a foul. So I'm in the lead. As I mentioned, I usually put myself in the play because I always want to stay connected to the play versus saying he's there or she's there. So I put myself in the play as being Paul on this particular game here. So I call a foul, right? Let's look at how I posted my foul. It's nice and straight for the most part. You punch to the sky, punch through the ceiling. You know, I paused. I'm only talking about the calling official. I'm not talking about Paul running in yet, right? So I paused. So what's the next thing after that, right? The next thing is who fouled. So you can say, you know, the white 21, you can do a bird dog, which is having your palm down and you're pointing, you know, at the waist of the player who committed the infraction, the foul. So in this case, so then after that, after I called the foul, I posted my foul, my arm is pretty high. I say who fouled. The next is a preliminary. What preliminary signal am I going to give? Am I going to give a hit? Am I going to give a block? You do that at the spot by rule, that's what the rule book tells us to do, right? Let's see what happens. So I posted my foul. Come on. Okay, so remember I said, this situation is a little bit different, but just going through how it should look. Posted my foul, I tell what white 21, and then from there, I'm supposed to do a preliminary at the spot. Next. The next layer is what? Run around the players. I'm running through the players. I need to run around. Dan talked about running around the players and get to what? The reporting area. And one way to remember the reporting area is at the tip of the free throw arc here, right at the tip, which is also, as long as the foot is done on the line, it's going to be a 3-point shot in this particular example, right? Right here, and you draw a line. So if you can just nice jog, you want to be, show strength, you don't want to have your shoulders for the most part slouched. You want to have a nice jog to the reporting area, but remember, run around the players, right? Run around the players when you get here, right? I ran through the players, right? Now let's look at my reporting. The next thing is no need to touch the ball. Dan talked about that. Now, sometimes it's just normal reaction. The ball may come to you, you can't help it, but your partner should be ready to assist, to say, hey, I'm here, because you're trying to remember who fouled. You may have forgot who fouled catching the ball and, and throwing it to your partner. So try not to touch the ball. The ball is always going to be there if you can. But if you do, just make sure you try to give it to your partner. Once I do that, okay, now I'm moving. I'm moving while I'm reporting. See that? See, I'm moving. This is the part when if someone says, hey, you were moving while you were reporting, this is what it looks like. We're not supposed to do this. We're supposed to stop completely, a complete stop. And then you have a nice pace, a nice cadence to your reporting. White, 21, hit, which is illegal use of the hands, hit, 2 shots, and use your voice. Your voice shows strength. If I whisper and white, no one can hear you, right? White, 21, use your voice. And you want to make eye contact with the table official, which is your scorekeeper. If your scorekeeper is not looking, wait until they look up, because you may have the foul on 4. They do a great job. You may have the foul on 4, white 4, but the foul was really on, she put the foul on white 3. So they should really be looking at you. And Paul went through that nicely during the pregame, right? So make sure they're looking at you. Don't just assume that they know who you're going to be calling that foul on. This part right here, after you make your foul, right? He says 2 shots. Often what happens is, it's not in this particular scenario, but the coach ends up talking to you and say, hey, why was that a foul, right? And I have my back to my partner. 2 things, either I'm at the table because the table's trying to figure out or tell me something like, okay, did number 21, is that the 4th foul or 5th foul? She's trying to count up, your scorekeeper's trying to count the numbers, and I have my back to my partner, which is Paul. And then Paul thinks that everybody, oh, she's ready. She said 2 shots. Okay, we're ready to go. And then now Paul administers the throw gives the ball, puts the ball at the disposal of the free throw. And then I turn and say, boop, 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 that's 5 fouls. Now that doesn't allow us to look sharp, right? So this is not the place to try to pick up time, to increase pace of play. Where you pick up pace of play is being ready, the lead getting the players ready in the lane spaces after I have reported everything. So Paul should say, okay, white, let's get to your spots. White, blue, we got 2 shots. Let's get to your spots. So by the time I finish reporting and I turn and tell Paul how many shots, 2 shots, Paul then what? Repeats 2 shots. Now we're ready. Versus if I say 2 shots, I turn, nobody's lined up, right? So you're going to increase your pace of play by getting the players lined up, not thinking I'm ready. Because again, I could be talking to the table because they're trying to figure out if number 21 has committed their last foul and now they're disqualified from playing. 2, Sometimes here, we start talking to the coach. Now, Paul doesn't know that I'm ready and I'm talking to the coach. We need to complete because Paul's waiting for me. Paul's waiting to mirror what I just did. So once I say 2 shots, I need to tell Paul 2 shots. Because if I turn here and says 1 shot, and Paul said, wait, I thought we had 2 shots. He comes up to me and say 2 shots. Oh yeah, 2 shots. It happens. We're trying to prevent a correctable error. So make sure after you report and there's nothing going on with the table, you can always turn and talk to the coach on the side, but make sure you go through everything so that you can increase pace of play after you have reported, not while you're reporting, right? So, and then the other piece to this that I want to say is going back here, I posted by foul.
Come on.
I'm going to say the number, the color, white 21. What did the white 21 do? Hit. The next thing I need to do is make sure I'm telling my partner what's next. Are we shooting free throws, 2 shots, or are we going to have a spot throw-in? Spot inline, right? You have to tell that piece, and you have to tell if we are shooting free throws, if we are going to have a spot throw-in, let your partner know where. Now, Paul and Dan went over to throw-in spot, right? So that's very important. So I wanted to go through that piece. Remember, run around the players, not through the players. No need to touch the ball. Make sure we stop and report, right? Make sure we tell our partner what we have, 2 shots. So I wanted to cover that a little bit because that's how that is supposed to look. Now, Paul, he did a nice job running because the player was down, right? There's a player on the floor and Paul comes in nicely because there's a player on the floor. I'm still posting because I'm waiting for Paul. I move closer to this particular play to let the players know, hey, we're here. My partner may say, I'm here, Felicia, go report, or I see my partner, right? And so I wanted to go through that piece, right?
Come on.
And so after I report, if we look at Paul, because we're doing partners, right? The coach was beckoned onto the floor, right? That's the word we wants to say. The coach was beckoned. The coach came onto the floor, beckoned onto the floor. The athletic trainer came onto the floor. Someone's on the floor. This official, Paul doesn't need to stay here anymore. We need to make sure we control this whole environment. All these players are here, right? We can say, white, stand by your bench. Blue, stand by your bench. Now we have controlled the environment. Because what happens is, one of the players, let's back it up so I can show you what this one player, they walk past each other. There, you see the blue and I think 22, right there. If they hit each other, it was like, okay, you pushed me, intention me. He pushed him. Next thing you know, the other players, you can have a fight. So in order to control this situation, get white to their bench, blue to their bench. Paul doesn't need to stay here. Paul can come back here and we can monitor the benches, because what if someone comes off the bench? What's that penalty, right? Make sure there's not a sub at the table that has come into the game. Why? Because you need to have the sub for the injured player first before you actually accept another sub into the game. So there's a lot of stuff that you have to manage when you have a player that goes down on the floor. Okay, so Paul doesn't necessarily need to be here, get out the way. We don't want to touch the players at all, ever, right? Paul doesn't need to be here and he can move off. Okay, so I really just wanted to cover those 2 things. So I covered what the calling official should do, and I cover what my partner should be doing on this particular play, and then we beckon the coach onto the floor. So those were the points that I wanted to cover, and I really wanted to go over the calling official. Okay, I'm gonna stop showing my screen. Here, and one last piece, since the coach, while I'm not showing my screen, the coach came onto the floor, right? What happens to the player? That player has to go out the game because the coach came onto the floor unless there's a timeout. So all that you have to manage while they're attending to that, to make sure you adjudicate this particular play properly. Okay. Paul, I stopped sharing.
Only a couple more slides, folks, and we're done.
Yep. Okay, Paul, that was a great game. I really enjoyed that. You know, Saturn scored, go back to the previous slide. Saturn scored 100 points. You know, Jupiter scored 98. That was a great game. Is there anything that you would like to maybe take back or, you know, discuss that happened in this game, Paul?
I think I should have come to you with information to see if that was an intentional foul. I really think we should have gotten together and talked about that last hard foul. That's one thing I wish I would have done.
Right. I agree. You know, I was thinking about that, like, because the players on the floor, it was a hard foul. I mean, at the time, you know, I didn't think it was an intentional foul because, as we know, you know, it's based on I didn't deem it excessive or unnecessary. There was a play on the floor, but, you know, it's something to look at. You know, I would love to get a copy of this videotape to take a peek at that, to see how we managed that whole scenario, you know, to make sure we adjudicated it properly. How can we do it better, you know, the next time? That's what it's all about, you know. And I think just overall, as far as the game, I thought we, you know, for the most part, you know, we called a lot of hands. We had a lot of travels. You know, there was a one play I called the N1. I should have held my whistle. You know, I stopped the game. As I said, GI interrupted the whole game. But I think overall, I mean, we managed to contact pretty well. I felt comfortable with officiating with you. So yeah, is there anything you want me to put in the game report besides what we're discussing now?
I would just put in that the coach came off the bench to attend to an injured player, and there was no penalty for that, and the player had to leave the game. No timeout was called. I would make sure we put that in the report.
Okay, great. Okay, next slide. Okay, Paul, it was nice working with you. Good luck with the rest of the season. So that was our a brief post game. You should always try to have a brief post game, whether, you know, you call each other on the telephone as a 2-man, you know, and these are some of the things that you can consider. I mean, you know, Paul and I talked about, you know, was there a call we should have talked about, you know, but you can always talk about a rule. And some of these, you're not going to cover every single game. A rule, you know, we had an intentional foul that gives you an opportunity to look up intentional foul. How was our communication, our consistency, dynamics? Did you feel comfortable? Our rotation? And like Paul, Dan had said, that league can go over and then has to go back. You know, your bench decorum, did we manage the bench? You know, any unusual situation, intentional foul is an unusual situation. Why? Because we don't call it intentional foul every game, right? Know for sure you have an observer that may come into the locker room, and then you should do a written report. And so these are just some examples that you can discuss during your post game. Friends, that's it, my friends. Questions? I'll turn this back over to our fierce leader, Mr. Nick.
Hey, folks, anything you want to ask? We have a few minutes. Any questions? If not, the session's over. Okay, basically what I want to do is just a few things before we actually close it. I want to thank Dan, Felicia, and Paul. They put in a tremendous amount of work for the 3-person clinic and the 2-person clinic. We have a repeat of the 3-person clinic this Sunday night. Okay, starts at 8 o'clock. We were able to get this one in 2 hours. So basically, hopefully we'll be able to get the 3-person in 2 hours. There was a question, Paul. Coach's warnings. We don't have to do that if we don't want to, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, go ahead, Paul. Go ahead, Paul.
I was just going to say that's optional. It depends on what the violation is. What's the conduct? If there is egregious conduct, we can sanction with a technical foul immediately. If it's less than a major or egregious violation, then we can give a warning. So it's up to the official to determine what the extent, the magnitude, the scope of the coach's conduct of the violation.
Any other questions, folks? Anthony Barron asks, is there a post-game form? Anthony, your signers will give you a post-game form for the assigner you work for. There may not be one in a JV game or a junior high game, but there usually is one in a varsity game, and that's assigner dependent. All right. Any other questions? just so you know, this recording is taped. We will send all the recordings to the chapter secretaries, and we will turn those over, and they'll be able to do what they can. It'll be on YouTube, and you'll be able to see them on YouTube. I want to thank all the leaders of the PIAA and WPIAL for being part of these sessions, and we want to thank you, the officials, for taking time to improve your skills and thereby better the sport of basketball in Western Pennsylvania. Have a great year. I also want to tremendously thank Dan and Paul and Felicia, Dr. Young again, and hopefully, eventually, you guys will all get down to the Pete and work in front of this atmosphere down the Pete. Last thing I'd like to say is I am running for District 7 male officials rep again. You will get a ballot starting December 1st. Please vote for me if you so see fit. The ballots will come to your email address that you have online at the PIAA website. Okay, if you did not get your dues notification in the PIAA from the PIAA on October 15th, you will not get a ballot. So please look for the ballots on December 1st, and I would humbly accept your vote for the District 7 males officials rep for the next 2 years. Anything else from the audience? All right, folks, thank you for your time. If you have any questions, my email address is nkkmorea. That's nkkmorea at email.com or at AOL.com. And don't laugh, I still have AOL. So, all right, folks, thank you. Have a great day. Have a great rest of the night. Take care, man and ladies.